Alright, now that we got the Switch 2 unboxed and I already am going to film a separate setup video and transfer, I'm going to compare the Switch 2 with the original Switch as well as the Switch OLED that I have. Alright, so right off the bat, here is everything. Alright, so first things first, let's do the screen comparison, right? Everyone loves these. Stack them side by side, vertical on top of each other, and there you have it. We have the 3 generations of Switches right here. Try to get my reflection out of the way. So obviously Switch 2 is much wider, bigger screen, right? Look at the bezel comparison, right? This is such thick bezels for a boy. That's my whole fingernail right there. OLED was definitely a lot better, you can tell. The Switch 2 actually has somewhat of a big bezel, not as big as the original Switch, but it's still definitely a little bit more noticeable than the OLED. Now I have no doubt they're going to come out with an OLED version of the Switch 2 in the future. And speaking of the OLED, I would say definitely right now, you guys probably can't really see it through the camera, but for me, definitely the screen that is the best, irregardless of screen size, is definitely the OLED right now, right? Like these colors are just so much more vibrant and it's so much more deeper blacks. This one, you can definitely see the screen, whiteness in the back. And then the original Switch, I'm not gonna lie, when I first used it years ago, I thought it was amazing. Now, when I'm looking at it in comparison to these two, it's definitely the worst one. Not only is it the smallest, but it's also huge bezels, and the screen does not look as great in comparison. But this guy's a trooper. It's been with us for a while now. All right, now let's take a look at the backs of each console. So right off the bat, we're going to start with the original Switch. Of course, it's the Animal Crossing one, so I love the Animal Crossing design on the back. But still, being an original Switch, I believe this is a V2 or a little bit later model. But yeah, the kickstand, honestly the worst one of the bunch. It's very just singular, flimsy, and honestly I kind of felt iffy about using it a lot of times. You can feel the wobble there because I feel like it might snap or something. So it definitely was my least favorite of the kickstands. The Switch OLED, I actually really like the change on this one. Right, not only did they move the SD card to over there now, but like I really like the flat finish, and you could definitely like angle this way more down. I mean, you can't even move the original Switch, right? But I really adore the change on the OLED, and I think it's a great looking design. All right, Switch 2 logo is now in the back, and they opted out into a kind of like little bit of a kickstand that's tinier, but it goes around the sides and you can easily fold it back down. I think I do like this one. I wouldn't say this is necessarily my favorite design. I kind of prefer the OLED kickstand a little bit more, but I do know that this works better with some third-party accessories. So excited to see how this will work in the future. All right, Joy-Cons. So obviously with the original Switch 1 Joy-Cons, everyone knew the problem with this. It's small, not good for big hands like me. Then the buttons on the top, the shoulder ones, are really hard to press down. The OLED, it's a similar design. It's the exact same, except it introduced the white color variant. And then of course the green and blue are the exclusives for the Animal Crossing ones. And then the Switch 2 Joy-Con, a lot better to hold in my hand. It's bigger, and these shoulder buttons, a lot better to press. And I feel like I don't even need anything, attachment on it. This feels really good just to hold like one hand like this. So really happy with the Switch 2 Joy-Con change. Hopefully the way to attach it, of course, this is sliding in to the console, right? That's what gives the satisfying snap. This is magnetic, so all you gotta do is just, there you go. I don't even do anything. It just snaps right in, and then there is a new release trigger right here, so you can release it just like that. hopefully the wear and tear of this little magnet connector doesn't break over time. I do know people were worried about this, but unless you're like intentionally digging into it and trying to break it, I feel like for all intents and purposes, it's pretty fine. I really like how much easier it is just to snap in and snap out, and no more confusion about, you know, just sliding it the wrong way or not. All right, now let's talk about the docks. So the original Switch dock, I also had an original one before I gave it away to my family, but this is the Animal Crossing one. So of course I love the design of this one, but it's pretty similar. I do know that this one is attached to it, the cover. And then it's just USB-C, USB-A, HDMI in the back, no Ethernet, right? That's an important note for a lot of the V1, V2 switches. Now the OLED model, I definitely like the updated design. It's a little bit more simple. And then in here, you have the USB-C, HDMI, and then you actually have an Ethernet, right? Instead of a USB-A. So I love the Ethernet port built in. I think that was a great change into the OLED version. I'm not really a fan of the back cap. It just kind of just slides and like snaps out like that. And it feels kind of like flimsy. You know, like this is actually attached to it and then like just snaps in appropriately, right? I kind of really like the original Switch V1, V2 design a lot more. And then the Switch 2 version, okay, took some notes from the OLED, except on the inside we have USB-C, HDMI, and the Ethernet's kind of a little more into the base near the fans. There's definitely fans here and vents so that it can cool it for the 4K. The front, I'm okay on the design. I think it's simple, it's okay. It's definitely way more rounded of a design, right? Like if you compare all the Switch docks together, right, here they are on top of each other. It's definitely way more of a rounded design. It is larger. Don't even think about putting the original Switches in the Switch 2. It will not work, or vice versa, right? So definitely they kept the design aspects, just made it a little bit rounder, and then added a fan into the dock to cool it for 4K use. All right, and the final thing I'll say is with the new, I don't know what you call this, wrist attachments. These are interesting for the Switch 2. It's actually hollow, and there's not much to it. It's just really for the wrist wrap. And I believe you just kind of like put it on and it just goes on. All right, so kind of just match it up. Plus on the top with the plus, just like the old one. And then just kind of just snaps on. So it's pretty easy to snap on. You can definitely feel the shoulder buttons on this a lot better, but it's really just for the wrist wrap. I now with the version 1, version 2, and the OLED, it's kind of like this. And I know this gave people so many headaches because you have to match the plus with the plus on this, but the problem is that if you got it like wrong, right? If you got it like upside down and you try to slide it in, it would be so hard to take this thing out. And honestly, while I appreciate the sliding aspect of this, you know, I much rather prefer the, right, just like that. While I appreciated the initial design of this, I much rather prefer the Switch 2 ones where it's just kind of a snap on and you don't have to worry about sliding in the wrong way, because this is also pretty easy just to pop out, I believe. Just hold the release button and it just comes off as well, just as easily. But this one, you have to actually hold it and then slide it upwards to get out. All right. So I do appreciate the Joy-Con changes the most out of these three systems. I do appreciate the bigger screen. I do think an OLED screen on this would make it perfect. We all know the Switch 2 OLED is going to come soon. And then as for the docks, I like that the newer dock has a fan in it, although I kind of wish we had the old school way of getting the back panel on and off, because this just feels, in my opinion, a little bit flimsy to do. But otherwise, that is the comparison between all three. One more test actually is the putting into the dock. So obviously everyone knows the original V1, V2 switch in and out, simple. The OLED, right? You put it in, it's very similar as well, like that. Switch 2, exactly the same as you would expect. It is bigger though, and the screens, the edges are curved. But yeah, let's do a wobble test. I saw this online too. So I would say the original, I mean, if you forcefully wobble, it's noticeable. OLED's actually a little bit more stable in my opinion. I feel like you notice it a lot more with the original. Switch 2, it's somewhat stable too. Obviously, let's do a table shake just to see, right? All three. Yeah, you definitely notice the V1, V2 switches moving a lot more, and the OLED and the Switch 2 a little bit more stable, but hopefully your place is not shaking a lot anyways. All right, last test I want to do, and this is the only software test I kind of really want to do, is the eShop loading comparison. Now, we all know how tough it was for the eShop to load, so let's see. Even though I did this one last, as you can see, this loaded up first, then the OLED, then the original Switch. And yeah, these are really slow now by today's standards, especially when just browsing, right? Like just trying to go down on this, and like menus take forever to load. This on the Switch 2 is pretty much near instant, right? You can go through the tabs. Like look, the original Switch is still stuck. OLED was a little bit better, but yeah, this is kind of the eShop has huge reason to upgrade, in my opinion. Better eShop and just better, faster software. All right, so that has been my video on all three systems. We went from the very first Switch of the V1, V2 generation into the Switch OLED, and now we have the Switch 2 right here. I'm excited to play the Switch 2. I'm excited to have my libraries imported into there to the next generation. I have videos that I want to do in the future regarding comparisons with Switch 2 as well as like other accessories. So please stay tuned. Please like, comment, subscribe for more. I'll see you guys on the next one.